This next sample that you're going to do is the last one for this little group of samples, and it's called the convex curve. And you'll notice, again, I have a little notch here, so I can mark that with my pen if I want, or I can make a little nick in the fabric. So I'm going to mark that that's where that lines up on both sides. And we're going to go all the way around and sew it again at 1/4 inch. And you can mark your corners. You're going to find that you might even want to mark the curve until you get used to sewing curves. This side does not get sewn. That needs to be left open so we can flip it and turn it. And I'm just going to mark these corners again. So here's the corner. Ooh. If you don't have one of these see-through rulers, if you've purchased the ruler for hems, the hem guide, that looks like this, you could also use this ruler because this is marked to where you could push this little end to where it says it's 1/4 inch. And I'm going to turn this over here, and I can do the same thing. I can lay this along the edge of my fabric, and I can mark this at 1/4 inch. You know, if it's difficult to manage curves yet, you could come across, and every so often you could put a little mark so that you try to maintain that curved edge. And then we're just going to stitch down the side, around that curve, and up the other side. Ooh, let's see, here we go. Again, always make sure that your threads are going out the back of the foot and that you leave enough thread, because what happens in this area when this lever goes up and down here and it's advancing the thread, it can pull the thread up out of your needle, and then you're having to rethread your machine all the time. So if that's happening to you a lot, make sure that you've got enough thread hanging out the back of the presser foot. So I'm lining this up again at the very edge of my presser foot, or my 1/4 inch line that's on the throat plate here. And I'm going to go forward a few stitches, back a few. Whoops. Okay, it's not going backwards. There we go. And come down to my corner. I need one more stitch. Okay. And then I'm going to turn, and I'm going to follow that curve around. So this gets a little tricky because at this point, it's following the presser foot of the curve, but it's curving away over here. So you can't be looking down here. You really have to be looking up closer to the area that you're stitching and making sure that needle's hitting that 1/4 inch. So I'm coming up to my corner here. I'm going to go slow because I don't want to overshoot it. And I'm going to turn and come up to the top. And then we're going to do some clipping. This is going to require a different type of clipping than the other curve that you did, because this one, the outside edge of your seam allowance is actually bigger than where it's going to land when you turn it. So when you turn this fabric up, you've got excess fabric. And so you'll see what will happen when you go to press it is you'll get these little fold over sort of pleats, and those will look lumpy on the inside of your garment. So we're going to trim the fabric. So we're gonna cut out little, here's a sample of one that's already been cut. You can see that I cut little V's out of the fabric. So we're just gonna go along. You're gonna wanna remove those corners again. You really don't have to do anything on the side. So I've clipped my corner off, and then I'm clipping just little V's out of the fabric in order for this to be able to lay nice and smooth when it flips up. So you'll see on this sample, when I turn up my seam allowance, you can see that it comes together, but there is an extra fabric that's folding over. So it really has a lot to do with the geometry of a curve, which way you clip it or you take fabric out. So we're going to take it over to the ironing board and we're going to press it, and then we'll be finished. So we're going to turn this right side out, and I'm going to use that little pointy tool again to try to get a nice corner. So you're going to turn this like this, and you'll see that it's pretty difficult to make sure that you don't get a lot of little, like, pleats, I guess you would call them. And so again, one way to do that would be to open this up and take your iron and just poke the little point of the iron in there and sort of push that seam allowance in one direction. And then we're going to take this little tool and we're going to push our corner out carefully so that we don't poke a hole in it. And I can lay this down and push out on it. Ugh. So you can see sometimes this takes a little extra work to manipulate it. So don't be in a hurry to get it done. Try to get it right. So there, it's nice and I can get that nice and flat. So there's that one corner. I'm going to do the other same thing at this corner. Try to push it out. Again. My purple side is the wrong side, so I'm going to turn this over to make sure when I press it that I haven't pressed it so that the purple shows. I can't get that corner out very well, so I'm going to try a little assistance from a pin to pull it out, because we don't want that squared off. We took the time to make a nice square corner. We don't want it to all of a sudden be missing part of that corner. So I flattened that out. That doesn't look too bad. And then when you're trying to do this curved area, sometimes what works really good is you might have to lick your fingers, as gross as that sounds, and roll the fabric towards the seam. You can't just put the iron down on the whole thing and hope you get it right. You've got to keep working it. So I'm doing this and I'm rolling back, trying to work that seam so that I don't see the facing side on the outside. I'm only going to see it on the inside. So think of this as the edge of a curved collar at the neckline. So it's the back of a collar, and you'll see that both sides look really, really nice. So finish this sample and mark it that this is your convex curve. And then you're finished with these particular samples. Here you can see that I've clipped all the way around, little triangles out. And when I get here to the corner, this next corner, same thing, that you need to cut that fabric off at the corner. And then we're going to turn it and press it. So here's your finished set of samples lined up together. So you've got your facing with understitching, your inward corner, your outward corners, and your convex curves, which also includes some outward corners. So good job. Submit all those to the Dropbox, please.